Thank you for joining this edition of News Today, a series where we briefly discuss and analyze important news of the day. Before we start with the news, we would like to pull your attention towards an important announcement. There has been a change in the date of the UPSC prelims examination, which will now be held on 16 June 2024 instead of 26 May 2024. In alignment to this change, the Abhyas Prelim mock test series has also been rescheduled. The new dates of Abhyas Prelims are going to be 21st April, 12th May and 26th May. Coming back, now let us explore the headlines first. ISRO successfully conducted the Pushpak Reusable Landing Vehicle Legs 2 landing experiment. Union government seeks report from Punjab government on alleged violation of Assisted Reproductive Technology Regulation Act 2021. Ministry of Information and Broadcasting issues advisory on surrogate advertisements of online betting platforms. Lancet's Global Burden of Disease study finds total fertility rate decline across the world since 1950. International Labour Organization releases the report Profits and Poverty: The Economics of Forced Labour. The fourth Global E-Waste Monitor 2024 report has been released. Let us start with the first news for the day. ISRO successfully conducted the Pushpak Reusable Landing Vehicle Legs 2 landing experiment. RLV Legs 2 is the second of the series of experiments conducted by the Indian Space Research Organization under the Reusable Launch Vehicle Technology Demonstration Program. RLV Legs 2 revalidated the indigenously developed technologies for performing high-speed autonomous landing of a space-returning vehicle. In it, the winged body and all flight systems used in RLV Legs 1 were reused. In 2023, RLV Legs 1 mission was successfully conducted. Further talking about the Reusable Launch Vehicle Technology Demonstration or the RLV-TD program. It aims at developing the essential technologies for a fully RLV to enable low-cost access to space. RLV is essentially a space plane with a low lift-to-drag ratio and can travel to low Earth orbits to deliver payloads and return to Earth for use again. The vehicle will be scaled up to become the first stage of India's reusable two-stage orbital or TSTO launch vehicle. NASA is using RLV for a long time and private space agencies such as SpaceX demonstrating partially reusable launch systems. Further talking about its advantages, the RLV is considered a low-cost, reliable and on-demand mode of accessing space. However, it is also facing several challenges, which includes the selection of materials like special alloys, composites and insulation materials, and the crafting of its parts is very complex and demands highly skilled manpower. In our next news, the Union government seeks report from Punjab government on alleged violation of Assisted Reproductive Technology Regulation Act 2021. Let us first start by talking about the Assisted Reproductive Technology Regulation Act 2021. The ART Regulation Act was enacted for the regulation and supervision of the assisted reproductive technology clinics and banks. As per the Act, ART includes all techniques that attempt to obtain a pregnancy by handling the sperm or oocyte or immature egg outside the human body and transferring the gamete or the embryo into the reproductive system of a woman. Let us further discuss the common methods of ART. In vitro fertilization, which involves fertilizing an egg in the lab and placing it into the woman's womb. Gamete donation, it is done by using eggs, sperm or embryos from someone else to help intended parents to have a child. And gestational surrogacy, in which an embryo from the intended parents or from a donated oocyte or sperm is transferred to the surrogate uterus. Now let us have a look at the key provisions of the Act. National and State Assisted Reproductive Technology and Surrogacy Board are established governing bodies under the Act. The Act also provides for registration of assisted reproductive technology clinic and banks. In the terms of eligibility for beneficiary, for women between 21 years and 50 years and for men, upper limit is 55 years. In terms of the eligibility for the donor, for women 23 years and 35 years and for men, it's 21 to 55 years.
Moving ahead, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting issues advisory on surrogate advertisements of online betting platforms. Let's start by first having a look at the key highlights of the advisory. Influencers on social media must refrain from promoting offshore online betting and gambling platforms in any form, including surrogate advertisements. Surrogate advertisements are substitute advertisements for goods which cannot be directly advertised due to prohibition of law. Also, online advertisement intermediaries are advised against targeting such content to the Indian audience. Moreover, non-compliance may result in proceedings under Consumer Protection Act 2019. Further, if we talk about the earlier regulating provisions for the same, then these include Information Technology, Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rules 2021. It focused on clear disclaimers and advertising targeting children. IT Act Section 79, which exempts intermediaries but mandates removal of unlawful content upon notification. Also, the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting can order intermediaries to remove illegal ads. And lastly, there is Consumer Protection Act 2019, which enables action against stakeholders promoting illegal activities in ads. There are also some concerns related to these platforms, like addictive behavior, social detachment, and emerging cybercrime trends, regulatory ambiguity, money laundering, and cyber attacks. If we talk about the way forward to ensure a smooth and functional process, then strict monitoring, awareness campaigns, collaboration with social media platforms, celebrity engagement, and partnerships for responsible online behavior to address online betting and gambling concerns will contribute well enough. At last, now let's also discuss some legal provisions for gambling and betting. First is 7th Schedule Entry 34 empowers states to regulate betting and gambling. Next are Public Gambling Act 1867, Lotteries Regulation Act 1998 and FEMA 1999. These are central laws governing gambling and income. And lastly, Finance Ministry imposes GST on online money gaming, casinos and horse racing.
Another news, Lancet's Global Burden of Disease study finds total fertility rate decline across the world since 1950. Let us first have a look at the study's key findings. The global total fertility rate or TFR more than halved from 4.84 in 1950 to 2.23 in 2021. Other than that, the expected global TFR is 1.83 in 2050 and 1.59 in 2100. In 47 countries, fertility was below the replacement rate from 1950 to 2021. India's TFR was 6.8 in 1950, 1.91 in 2021, and is projected to fall to 1.29 and 1.04 in 2050 and 2100 respectively. The reasons for the same being improving the access to modern contraceptives and female education are two primary drivers of declining fertility. Moving on, let us understand the impact of the low levels of fertility. The changes in age structure caused by a growing elderly population and shrinking working age population and a labor force acts as a reason. It may further increase burden on healthcare and social systems. Smaller future population could alleviate strain on global food systems, environments, and other finite resources. Lastly, low TFR will improve women's decision-making power in the household. Coming on to the policy suggestions for the same. Implementing pro-natal policies such as child-related cash transfers and tax incentives can help benefit the cause. The access to modern contraceptives and rapidly expanding access to female education. And lastly, investment in social security programs and healthcare infrastructure. Further talking about the replacement rate, it is the minimum rate necessary for generational replacement of population assuming no migration. The replacement level is generally accepted to be a total fertility rate of at least 2.1. The total fertility rate represents average number of children a woman would have in her childbearing years, usually considered 15 to 49 years.
Moving on to the next news. International Labour Organization releases the report titled Profits and Poverty, the Economics of Forced Labour. As per International Labour Organization's Forced Labour Convention 1930, forced labour is defined as all work or service which is exacted from any person under the menace of any penalty and for which the said person has not offered himself voluntarily. Talking about the key highlights of the report, then 27.6 million people engaged in forced labour in 2021. Total amount of illegal profits from forced labour has risen by 37% since 2014. And in India, brick kilns industry, carpet weaving industry are sectors having bonded labour. Further now, let's understand the factors involved behind forced labour. On the supply side, poverty acts as a significant driver. Moreover, identity-based discrimination, whether due to race, gender or other factors, further exacerbates vulnerability to forced labour. Limited labour protections, particularly among unorganized workers, leave them susceptible to exploitation. On the demand side, outsourcing practices fragment responsibility for labour standards, making oversight and accountability challenging. Additionally, corporate dominance concentrates power and value, often at the expense of worker wages, perpetuating conditions conducive to forced labour. At last now, let's also have a look at the initiatives taken to stop forced labour. These initiatives include the International Labour Organization Protocol of 2014 to Forced Labour Convention 1930 and Forced Labour Supplementary Measures Recommendation 2014. In India, there is Article 23 for prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor, Article 24 for prohibition of employment of children in factories, etc., and Bonded Labor System Abolition Act 1976. Moving ahead in the news, the fourth Global E-Waste Monitor 2024 report has been released. The report is prepared in partnership with the United Nations Institute for Training and Research's Sustainable Cycles or S-Cycle program, International Telecommunication Union, and Foundation Karmaniak. The United Nations Institute for Training and Research provides innovative learning solutions to individuals, organizations, and institutions to enhance global decision making and support country level action for shaping a better future. Let's now have a look at the key findings of the report. There has been a record e-waste generation with 62 million tons of e-waste produced in 2022, up 82% from 2010. Also, it is expected to rise by 32% to 82 million tons by 2030. Next, it talks about the recycling gap, where only 1% of rare earth element demand is met by e-waste recycling. Also, e-waste generation is increasing 5 times faster than documented e-waste recycling. If we talk about India's status, then it is one of the world's largest generators of e-waste, that is 4,137 million kilograms. Further, let's now discuss about e-waste. E-waste refers to all items of electrical and electronic equipment and its parts that have been discarded by its owner as waste without the intent of reuse. Few examples are discarded mobiles and television. E-waste contains toxic materials or can produce toxic chemicals such as lead, mercury, etc., which can cause adverse neonatal outcomes and reduced lung and respiratory function. There are also some issues in e-waste management like limited repair options, shorter product life cycles, and inadequate e-waste management infrastructure. At last, now let's talk about the initiatives taken for e-waste management in India. These initiatives include E-Waste Management Rules 2022, notified by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. 2022 rules replace the E-Waste Management Rules 2016. These rules are managed by the Central Pollution Control Board. Extended Producer Responsibility or EPR for e-waste management was introduced in E-Waste Rules 2011, and rules are notified in the Environment Protection Act of 1986. Also, there has been an emphasis on the promotion of circular economy. The place in news for today is Papua New Guinea with its capital Port Moresby. It is in the news as recently two warring groups, Yopo Alliance and Palinao Alliance, signed a ceasefire agreement in Papua New Guinea. Talking about its political boundaries, it is an island country in southwestern Pacific Ocean, encompassing eastern half of New Guinea, world's second largest island, Bismarck Archipelago, Bougainville and Buka. It stretches from just south of the equator to Torres Strait, and its neighbors include Indonesia in the west, Australia in the south, and Solomon Islands in the southeast. Talking about its geographical features, it is situated along a Pacific Ring of Fire. Its main rivers are Sepik and Fly, and its highest peak is Mount Willem.
To today's main news, let's take a look at some quick updates. India, Mozambique, Tanzania Trilateral is a joint maritime exercise. The first edition of IMT Trilat exercise was conducted on October 2022. India criticized the Uniting for Consensus model at the United Nations for its opposition to Security Council reforms. The Uniting for Consensus is a group created in 1990s, also known as the Coffee Club. Its objective is to expand non-permanent seats for regional inclusivity and avoid new permanent seats and limit veto power. Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology launched the BhashaNet portal based on the concept of universal acceptance. It is developed by the Centre for Development of Advanced Computing with support of National Internet Exchange of India. The universal acceptance ensures that all domain names, including internationalized domain names and email addresses, are treated equally. India launched the Operation Indravati to evacuate its nationals from Haiti to the Dominican Republic. As part of the ongoing operation, 12 Indians were evacuated, as Haiti has been under a state of emergency after some armed groups attacked the country's largest prison in Port-au-Prince earlier this month. Study finds female right whales may never breed after entanglement in the fishing gear. Talking about the right whales, they are named for being right whales to hunt because they were easy to catch and are found close to shore, swam slowly and floated when they were dead. The International Telecommunication Union or ITU elected India as co-chair of its Digital Innovation Board. ITU is a specialized United Nations agency for information and communication technologies driving innovation in ICTs. It has as its member 193 member states, including India, and over 900 companies, universities, and international and regional organizations. JNCASR scientists develop a pancreas mimicking silk-based hydrogel system for responsive insulin delivery in diabetes treatment. Talking about pancreas, it is located behind the stomach in the upper left abdomen. It performs the exocrine function and the endocrine function. Technology Development Board grant funds for Project Anangrenif, the development of a novel class of antibiotics against gram-negative bacterial infections or Anangrenif. This project is the collaborative initiative between Indian and Spanish companies. Its objective is to develop a novel lead compound, particularly an antibiotic, and combating critical gram-negative pathogens. Before we go, it's time to put your knowledge to test in today's segment of Test Your Learning. Thank you for joining us. We hope you have enjoyed this edition of News Today. To get the answers to today's quiz and to download the PDF of News Today, make sure to check out the links in the description below.